Hello and welcome to the Choice event. We have now reached number 31 in our series, and I'm very pleased that you are here with us today. My name is Florian. I am the communication lead at the Climate Choice, and we organize the Choice event series in order to inform you every second Thursday during the lunch break about best practice solutions for your climate transformation. And today, I'm happy to welcome Gina Lovett and Antonio Rawson from Patagonia. In a moment, they will tell us more about how companies can go beyond renewable by supporting community energy projects. There will be a few more people to join us, so I'll start slowly and introduce you to how we'll be organizing the Choice event today. First of all, I would like to tell you that we are recording the webinar today. This way, you will be able to watch the talk again afterwards on YouTube. We are using the webinar function of Zoom, which means that you can see me, but I cannot see you. However, we still invite you to have a lively discussion with us, and you can do that in two different ways. The easiest way is to post questions or comments here in the chat window, and also to vote up the questions or comments of others with a like. In this way, you can communicate with each other during the webinar. And we use this tool to collect the questions during the lecture so that our experts can then answer them at the end of the webinar. The second feature is our Slack group. You have all been invited to this group by email in advance. And here you also have the chance to ask questions to the speakers after the 1 hour of our webinar. Other than that, the Slack group is also there for you to network with each other and, for example, to find out what are others looking for in climate transformation, what are the most important topics at the moment, and what tips and best practices can you share with others. So let's talk about us, the Climate Choice. Why do we organize the Choice event series? We have made it our mission to support companies in their climate transformation. And therefore, we are building the climate data-driven software platform for decarbonizing companies and their supply chains. We do this in two ways. First, we help companies to find out where they stand in their own climate transformation. We do this in a data and software-driven way with our climate readiness check, which collects both qualitative and quantitative data of your climate performance in 5 different dimensions. This kind of assessment is currently becoming more and more important in order to meet international standards and increasing customer and investor requirements. So in this way, we show companies where they currently stand, but also what fields of action and potential there are for them to improve and implement decarbonization measures. But the whole thing does not stop with your own company. And we all know that scope 3, that means the emissions of the supply chain, are actually the most important. And with every buying decision, you not only produce CO2, but you also have the opportunity to actually reduce CO2. That is why we also offer the Climate Data Platform, which is a software tool to work closely together with your suppliers, to collect data here as well, and to implement decarbonization measures along the entire supply chain. This is why our webinar series fits in so well with our mission, as we invite experts every second week to show individual areas where companies can easily reduce CO2 either in internal processes or in the supply chain. And that's why I'm very pleased to welcome Gina Lovett, Environmental Initiatives Manager EMEA at Patagonia, and Antonio Rawson, Environmental Community Organizer at Patagonia Berlin. Together, they will look at what opportunities exist for companies in the energy sector beyond the purchase of renewable energies by supporting community energy projects. Welcome, Gina and Antonio. Great that you are here today. You may now speak or turn on your video.
Thanks a lot, Florian. Really, really great to be here and to see such an amazing turnout. We're really chuffed to have the opportunity to speak to you today about community energy. So we're going to share some slides and some thoughts on what we're doing in relation to community energy. And then we're going to take some questions. So I'm going to try and share my screen as efficiently as possible. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, but first, just very shortly, I wanted to give you both an impression of who is with us today. So we have prepared a small survey that I will now show you. After that, you can share your slides as well. Yeah. But now I will start a short survey, which you should be able to see now. And you can now click. This is about your professional background, and we would like to know which role best describes your position in your company. So are you part of a startup? Are you a CEO, work in procurement or sustainability or other fields? So yeah, we have already many respondents. I give you 2 more seconds and then I will end the survey. And now you should see the results. And we see that, yeah, we have a majority in sustainability managers, but also some consultants and people in marketing. Very good. And now I will start the second question, which is how aware are you of the topic of our webinar, which is community energy? So is your company already working with community energy? Are you considering it? Are you just interested to learn more about it? Or up until now, you have not been aware of it at all? So take also your time to answer this. I will end it in 2 seconds. And now we can see that, yeah, which is very good. So most of you are really interested to learn more and don't know very much about it. And the second most are people that have not even been aware of it. Yeah, I think this is a very good starting point. And yeah, very good for Gina and Antonio to give you more insights into this. So now I will end my presentation and you can start sharing your slides, Gina.
Great, thanks a lot. Really interesting to see who we have here today and the kind of levels of awareness of community energy. Just let me know if you can see that.
Yes, I can see it. It's not in presentation. Yes, now it's in presentation mode.
You can see the slides in full screen?
Yes, I can see the slides in full screen. And now, yeah, I will be in the background and listen to you, and I will come back in the end with a Q&A round. And yeah, very much looking forward to your insights.
Perfect. Okay. Well, thanks again for the opportunity. We're really, really chuffed to be able to speak about community energy today. As Florian mentioned, my name's Gina. I work at Patagonia Europe as Environmental Initiatives Manager. And contrary to some thinking, it's not kind of focus more on the CSR side, but it's rather on the external campaigns and the advocacy. And a big focus of my role has been community energy and our campaign on We the Power.
Yeah, thank you, Gina, and thanks, Florian, for the introduction. I'm Antonio. I work in Berlin with the Berlin store, our retail store, and I'm also here in charge of the local environmental campaigns, the network building with the environmental movement, climate movement. And I also work with the Amsterdam environmental team on the campaigns, on strategy, etc. And I'm really excited to be with you here today.
Okay, so many of you might be thinking, why on earth is an outdoor company like Patagonia supporting community energy? And I think it all comes back to this statement here, which is our mission. And that's, we're in business to save our home planet. So this is it drives all of our decision making across the business. So our communications, sales, product, everything leads back to this. And as part of our mission, you know, we look around, we're really concerned, deeply concerned about climate change. And we know that the energy system, you know, is the biggest source of emissions. If we're going to change the energy system, then we need to have a kind of a radical shift in mindset. So we can't just, you know, switch over with the same, with different technologies and the same power structures. We need to have a different approach. And we see that, you know, part of this problem is that the dominant model of big energy companies is a lack of democracy in the energy system. And to stabilize global warming at 1.5 degrees Celsius, we need to put power back into the hands of people. So we came across this concept of community energy when we were talking to the grassroots groups that we support. That's through our 1% for the Planet program. And essentially, we give 1% of our sales to grassroots groups. So in conversations with these groups, as far back as 2018, we started to realize that this radical shift in mindset, that perhaps community energy could be an approach to that. It's something that, you know, it works environmentally and socially, and we see it contributing to a just transition, but it wasn't getting the attention that it deserves. So that's what we wanted to do, was to shine a spotlight on this movement, and to acknowledge the many pioneers of this movement that have been working on this topic for decades. So to celebrate their work and to really help inspire others with the possibilities. And, you know, if Europe is to meet its climate goals, it has to undergo, as I've said, huge transformation. So it needs to be more agile, it needs to be more resilient, it needs to be more distributed and decentralized. So that's going to take a lot of investment, and much of that is going to be paid by the taxpayer. So there's a good solid argument, you know, that citizens need to be at the heart of this energy transition. And this essentially is where the concept of community energy comes from. So it's really the idea that when citizens get together, they can produce, sell, and share their own renewable energy. And the key thing is that they do it in line with the needs of that community. So they set up a cooperative, they install a renewable power system, and they're able to generate an income and profits with that energy system. And all the members of the cooperative get a say in what the funds go to. It might be insulating homes and making them less drafty. It might be helping bring down the cost of bills, or it might be electric car sharing. But really the lovely thing about community energy is it not just reduces emissions, but it also works on the system in a social way. So it changes, you know, the governance and social structures. And we see that as having a real halo effect. So for these reasons, we see community energy as a very critical climate solution, not just for Patagonia, but more widely for society. And what started to make all of this look feasible and not just some nice kind of pipe dream was changes in energy legislation in Europe back in 2019. So something called the Clean Energy Package came through, and that stated, Europe has to provide 50% of its electricity from renewable sources. And the package included policy across buildings and performance, but also it had market rules and how those market rules would be for renewable energy production. And there was a group of advocates that really, fought for the idea that anyone participating in a market needs to be treated equally. So they were really able to get citizens a place at the table in the energy transition, at least in policy anyway. So the beginning of 2019, this all came through. We had acknowledgement of the role of community energy and the kind of outline of what their activities would be and how it would be defined. And that really is helping to put citizens on a level playing field at the European level. However, so you see a map here. It's not a COVID map. I haven't put a legend on, but I will explain this. This is basically the status of community energy legislation and how the kind of rights and that level playing field guaranteed by Europe is now translating into the everyday situation of citizens in Europe. So at a national level, countries are obliged to translate this into law. And we see the green countries are the ones that are doing quite well. They're quite far advanced in this process. And that level playing field is becoming a reality. On the other hand, we see there's a couple of countries, and it's sad to say that Germany is included in those, where there hasn't been any progress as yet. And that means that there's still a long way to go. So I think that the key takeaway from this is, while there's this fantastic vision from European policy, there's a lot of work that needs to happen to stop this fragmented picture at the national level. And I'm going to hand it over to Antonio.
Yeah, thank you, Gina. As we've just seen, Germany is among the worst in actually translating this renewable energy directive into national law. The deadline for this that was set by the EU was actually last July, and it didn't happen. So that's a bit disappointing, but we're looking forward, of course, to these rules being translated in the future. And we're a bit hopeful because there, as you know, we have a new government in Germany, probably from December on, or in the next few weeks. So there might be movement there. But how did we even get here? Because Germany is sort of in a weird hybrid state where, on the one hand, Germany is the country in the EU with the most energy cooperatives and renewable energy cooperatives compared to all other states in the European Union. We have, last count, I think it was around 900 energy cooperatives in Germany alone, which is it's a big number. But most of these have been founded over 2 decades ago. So we had, after the Chernobyl incident, the probably best known cooperative that was founded is Elektrizitätswerke Schönau, EWS, also featured in our movie a lot, Be the Power. And they were founded because people said, this nuclear energy is really dangerous. Let's not use that. But all the big corporates wanted to use it because they wanted to make big monies from it. So citizens said, oh, well, then how about we control the energy grid? How about we control how energy is produced? And this is how this movement of energy cooperative got started in Germany. And it really took off during the 80s, 90s, and then also the 2000s. But it was sort of stopped by legislation. So on the one hand, we have this law, the EEG, the Erneuerbare Energiengesetz, from the end of the 90s that probably all of you have at least heard about, which was quite good for renewable energies, because it basically said, you know, if you have a solar or wind turbine, we will give you a fixed amount for every amount of energy that you produce. We will buy it from you for 20 years. But you know, end of the 90s until now, that's the 20 years. So today, parts of these or some of these installations that have been built, solar installations, wind turbine parks, they're dropping out of that. And also our new probably new coalition, they want to abolish the EEG and create new legislature. So it's a bit of a interesting situation for Germany here. And in the last few years, sadly, there have been hardly any new cooperatives being founded, energy cooperatives, because our current government, sort of the Großkoalition, they were not very supportive of the concept. And a lot of the first movers, they got discouraged by that. And, you know, not implementing the Renewable Energy Directive 2 is just the tip of the iceberg, basically. And what we were sort of wasting our time with in the last few years were false debates, so to say. We were discussing about people who didn't, like wind power opponents, for example. So citizens who didn't want wind turbines to be built in their backyard. Instead, the real issue isn't that they didn't want that. The real issue was that they were never included in the process. So it's sort of we don't want to say, oh, these bad people, don't want it in their backyard. Well, they had good, in some cases they had reasons for that. They had reasons for feeling left out. And energy cooperatives are actually one of the best solutions. If you include communities, if you include people in building these, for example, wind turbines, etc., if they profit from that also locally, then they are a lot more positive for building these. So that's where actually energy cooperatives could have been a solution, but they were ignored in the large part by our current government. Gina, can you go to the next slide, please? Thank you. Yeah, as I said, there is a new coalition coming. Some of you have maybe been looking at the coalition agreement that has been published, I think, last week, which is very interesting because community energy is actually named in there. So we're hopeful that in the next few months and years, community energy will have a second time of growth in Germany again. And this is very good because community energy is not only a part of climate solutions. So it's not just a way to make our energy system renewable and green, but it also has a lot of co-benefits. You have to think that for fixing all the issues that we have that lead to the climate crisis, lots of that is that our economy is built on partly inefficient ways. Inefficient, not that it doesn't create the best profit, but it creates a lot of trouble for environment, for communities, for social needs. And if you have more localized economies, if you have more localized concepts like energy community, these work way better on many levels. For example, common good business models or social entrepreneurship that hopefully will have a good time or a lot of growth in the next years. And these actually have a lot of synergies with community energy, and we will show you just a few examples of those. Yeah, that's exactly right. So what we see here is one solar installation in Berlin. It has been done by Bürgerenergie Berlin. It's a energy cooperative here in Berlin, where I live. I am also a member of this cooperative, and they work together with a second cooperative, the Wohnungsgenossenschaft Neukölln, who offer affordable housing to people living in Berlin. And these two work together, and they created a concept whereby they can provide 30% of the needed energy, the energy consumption, they can provide through the solar panels on top of the housing. And this is done by the so-called Mieterstrom project. And so this is one cooperative offering housing, one cooperative offering to provide these solar panels, and a third cooperative, EWS, Elektrizitätswerke Schönau, that I told you about before, is actually the one providing energy, the rest of the 70% to tenants here. So this fits really nicely. And they are not just working together on creating energy, but also it's a process of education for the members of these cooperatives to talk about how's our energy done. If we have solar panels on the roof, what else can we do in terms of energy efficiency? So you engage people who otherwise probably wouldn't be engaged as much with these topics. You engage them with it, and the more they learn about it, the more they see the benefits also by this community owned solutions. All right, Tina, over to you.
I'm going to tell you a little bit about a wind cooperative in the north of Amsterdam. It's a small village. It's called Waterland. That's my Dutch pronunciation. So they started more than 20 years ago with 3 small wind turbines, and that went really well. It was successful, and with that money they were able to expand further. Then they got more income, and they decided to put the funding to various community endeavors. So they put solar panels on most of the homes for a very reduced price. They did home insulation, and then they started with an electric car sharing scheme. So they knew, as a village being outside the metropolis, that these bigger sharing schemes would not be interested in expanding to the village. And if they wanted to do something on electric mobility to kind of help educate people around preventing ownership and introducing them to electric mobility, they were going to have to do it themselves. And because it wasn't a venture driven by price and economics, it was driven by the needs of the community. They were able to put the car locations where people wanted, not where it was cheapest. So now they have 11 cars in total, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it actually is for a car sharing scheme. And that covers a number of villages. And the other great thing about this project, as Antonio mentioned, the social acceptance that the benefits of community energy bring for renewable energy, they're really visible in this case study. So the people that had installed the wind turbines and the community benefited from it, they're much more supportive of renewable energy. And this is, we're seeing a lot of opposition coming through in the Netherlands at the moment, because there's a lot of pressure on the government to kind of install renewable energy as quickly as possible. But it needs to be done in line with communities and their needs. So they need to see the benefit from it. And I also want to tell you a little bit about 2 projects in the UK. So the one, if you look at the 2 pictures here on the bottom left, the one there of the big building is the Bannister House solar project in Hackney in London. And I was lucky enough I used to live in London, and I volunteered for a little while on this project and did some door knocking around the estate and helped people get helped introduce them to the idea of community energy. This project has now was set up and it's been going since 2015. And the woman there who you see underneath the building is called Leila Fortunato. She started as a volunteer, but now she's one of the directors and she's a main driver of the project. But what she talks about is how young people on the estate had opportunities to do paid work experience. And through that, they learned about the IT, the technical, the legal structures, and how to install and maintain solar panels. So as a result of that, they also got really interested in climate issues. And now this project is being held up a lot as a flagship case study. So it's something that the community are really, really proud of. And there on the right is a woman called Donna Seeley, and she's a driver of a project called Ambition Lawrence Weston, which is in Bristol in the southwest in the UK. And this project, they have been working with residents to develop their own climate plan. And again, it's this idea about being in need with being in line with the needs of the community. So the things that came up that were important for this community are jobs, skills, and alleviating fuel poverty. So they set up a project which is just coming to fruition now. It's going to be the UK's largest wind turbine, and they hope to heat the 3,500 homes across Lawrence Weston in Bristol with the energy from this wind turbine. So there's some really lovely examples of how communities can benefit from these types of projects.
All right, so at this point, you may be wondering, what are these two people talking about? This has nothing to do with Patagonia. This is just a lot of really nice projects, but what am I listening to here? Well, you're listening here to also a learning process that has happened within Patagonia within the last 12 months, where we really got in depth with the concept of energy communities and how beautiful they are and what you can achieve with them. You have to know that, for example, in Germany, at one point, we had a quarter of the renewable energy that was actually created by cooperatives. And on the other side, you see that renewables, we need to get to 100% as quickly as possible. So let's do that bottom up. Let's build that grassroots movement. And the question is, how can a company be a partner to that movement? Because it's a grassroots movement. We don't want corporates to control this. So there's some things that we found that we could do apart from our campaign. Number one, of course, you have to know, as Patagonia, we build product. So the most emissions that we produce, actually most energy that is consumed by Patagonia, is not consumed here in Europe, but otherwhere where we produce our product. So that's absolutely the maximum. The biggest part of our emissions are created there, more than 90%. But there is some that are left over, and these are, for example, our emissions here in Europe for offices, for stores, and worldwide, of course, but also here in Europe. And so that's where we started to include community energy. We switched up to this date 7 out of 9 stores here in Europe to community energy providers, and also most of our showrooms and our offices. And we're also building local partnerships that help and support community projects. And this is also a way that we can lend our brand credibility to projects and also talk to people like you and try to convince people from a business background to engage with this and to support in any ways that you may feel suited for yourself or your business. Gina, next slide, please. Thank you. So in general, business partners, for us, we want them to become solution partners, and we want our own employees, if possible, to become entrepreneurs. For example, we have a partner, wholesale partner, who we work with a lot, and they're really great. I can't name them right now because it's not official yet, but I can tell you that this partner of ours, we talked to them about community energy, and they found it so interesting, and they saw the potential that they invested in a solar installation on their warehouse. And they didn't just create, the smallest one that would have actually, because of weird laws in Germany, the smaller installation would give you more profit if you sell the energy, but they've built the whole roof, so the biggest possible installation, and they are actually selling that energy or giving that energy to a cooperative, an energy cooperative, and also encouraging employees to be switch to that cooperative as the energy provider, who then get a reduction of price because of the energy that is created on the roof of that company. So they get a benefit for their employees, they get a benefit for a partner cooperative, and they also get a huge benefit for the climate, of course. And this is the way of thinking that we want to create or inspire in others as well. How can you set up these partnerships where everyone profits in the end? We also have an internal employee conversion program for Patagonia, and with this, we educate our own employees, and more of them also switch or even invest in cooperatives, because of course cooperatives are owned by people like you and me who invest in them, and then they have maybe one share, maybe several shares, but they only have always one vote. So it's a very democratic model of doing business. And I invested in the Bürgerenergie Berlin cooperative here in Berlin, and it was an incredibly easy process where there's just a one-pager application, and I downloaded that, I filled it in, I've sent it to them, and then it's just wiring the amount of money for these 2 shares. So in this case, I think that was 100 euros. I wired that, and then, well, congratulations, now I am part of that cooperative. I supported them, and I can vote in their on their strategy, on what they will do in the future here in Berlin. And of course, Bürgerenergie Berlin, for those who don't know them, their primary goal in Berlin is to take over the energy grid, or at least be part of that. And I'm very happy to say that in the Berlin coalition agreement that came out also this week, this is actually named there as one of the goals for the new government. So it looks very good that this cooperative will be part of the new energy grid. So what we see here in this photo is actually us being with one partner from Bürgerenergie Berlin on the roof in Neukölln, where this solar installation is. That was really exciting being up there and actually seeing and touching these installations, and seeing where also the money that I invested, where this is going, and how this is immediately being part of the solution for the climate crisis in my own neighborhood. That's just an amazing feeling and very empowering. Yeah. All right, over to you, Gina. That's actually still me.
This one's still you, yeah.
Yeah, that's still me. That's another example of what we did in the UK this time, and it's about power purchase agreements. So in the UK, we have our stores and the local showroom that will be supplied by a corporation that's called Energy Garden. So the energy will come from Energy Garden Cooperative. And we signed a power purchase agreement with them That means that for a certain amount of energy that we know we need each year, we gave them a contract for a long-term contract. I don't know exactly know, Gina, is it 4 or 5 years? I think where we say, look, we will buy this amount of energy from you every year, and we will also give you a small social premium on this energy contract. And this social premium that we give them or pay them is for Energy Garden to engage in their local community work. So this is, for example, education. It's youth training, also in terms of local economy in climate solutions, etc., and also in the creation of green spaces in an urban neighborhood. And of course, the social premium is optional. You don't have to do that if you set up a power purchase agreement. It's just something that we felt was a really nice thing to do here for the community. And we're actually actively asking other businesses to copy this in the UK. So in Germany, power purchase agreements, at least in this way, are not used very widely yet. And part of the issue here is that the legal framework is not as clear so far, but there has been a survey from the Deutsche Energieagentur who found that there's a lot of interest from businesses and also green power suppliers to actually use these power purchase agreements more. And the benefit of a power purchase agreement, of course, is you get 100% the energy that from one provider. So you get 100% green energy if you work with a renewable energy community. You know that the money that you pay, it will not go to a big corporate who in the end has shareholders all over the world, but it will actually go to that community where the cooperative is situated. And of course, you get stable prices. So if you have a long-term contract, you will have a stable price. The good thing with renewable energy like solar and wind is, well, you know, the sun shines and the wind blows, you know. So this energy is very secure over the next few years. It's different to for example, gas prices that go up right now. So now you need to pay up more for gas if you're dependent on that. If you're not dependent on that, if you're as lucky as only a few people to, for example, get your heating through a Wärmepumpe, I don't even know the English term, and you have renewable power powering that thing, then you won't have higher prices, you know. So it's that easy, the benefit. And of course, you're directly part of a solution for the climate crisis. And yeah, it feels good to do that, because as we see, climate crisis is only getting worse, and we need solutions, and we want to be part of the solutions, all of us.
Okay. I also want to talk to you about something called Scope 4 emissions and what we're doing there. I guess it's part of our wider climate strategy and an approach to climate action, but I think it's very relevant in terms of, you know, advocating for effective climate policy. So effectively what Scope 4 emissions are, and you may already know this, but you know, corporations' influence on policy and regulation has a much bigger impact on climate change than the physical emissions from Scope 1, 2, and 3. So the suppliers, the operations, and the products. And we know that too many business leaders right now are saying all the right things on climate in public, but then behind closed doors, they're lobbying for, you know, to water down climate action. And I've put, you know, our CEO, Ryan Gellert here, who's really active on this topic. And we see that when you advocate for a just transition, and community energy being part of that for all the reasons we've talked about, that it really helps to make the case for effective climate policy. So it's really important as a business, that not just you work on kind of what you can do and your products and your suppliers, but also to use your influence to advocate for the solutions that are going to be most effective. Do you want me to do this one, Antonio?
No, I'm fine.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I spilled a glass of water on my laptop just before this webinar, and now the trackpad isn't working correctly. But it worked now. So to sum it up, before we get into questions, because we've been talking a long time now, to sum it up, what ways are there, to support community energy? For example, if you are part of a company, talk to your employees, to your colleagues. If you're interested, please reach out to us. We can also schedule something with you together. We could do a screening of With the Power, or just talk to you and try to connect on this issue. So talk to your employees, number one. Switch your energy contract. I mean, I don't know how many people, even in the climate movement, are still in some really bad energy contracts. Switch it now, switch it to a green energy provider, and look for those who are actually owned by a community. There are the nationwide energy cooperatives like Greenpeace Energy or EWS, but there's also the ones in your area, and we've actually built a map for our campaign that helps you find your local energy cooperative. So I'm happy, or we're happy to help you with this also. Then lend your reputation and credibility to a project. If you found a project in your area or that you really like, that you get along with, then also talk about it publicly, and think about how can we create a partnership that helps them maybe build or another solar installation, or invest in even new renewable infrastructure, because that's what we need now. We need more renewable energy infrastructure as quickly as possible to get our emissions down. Then you can also provide seed finance or guarantees for projects. There's hopefully, with new laws here in Germany, we will see again new energy cooperatives being founded. There's a lot of people who are interested in being part of the solution for the climate crisis. And if they see this as a viable solution again, we're sure more will be founded. If you can be on board from the beginning, even better. You could try out a power purchase agreement, like we talked for before, that will guarantee demand for that energy that they will produce. This is really helpful because especially the smaller community energy projects, it helps them to plan for the future, and it also helps them to raise these investments into the infrastructure. And last but not least, really important, almost all of these renewable energy communities, they are all looking for spaces, to expand to. That's often the limiting factor. It's not money. The limiting factor is often, where can we put our solar panels? Where are the roofs that we're allowed to use? Where is the land that we can put our wind turbines on? So if you have a warehouse, or if you have the possibility to offer space on roofs, etc., that would be really amazing. Reach out to your local cooperative and engage with them. And if you think they are good and they do what they actually say, then try to get that conversation started. And there's always something that you can do to support them, and also for them to support you. All righty.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
I'm just going to stop.
Thank you very much, Gina and Antonio. It was very, very insightful and very interesting. And yeah, so now our question and answer round starts, and you can still write your answers in the chat window. And also, if you already see that your question has already been asked, you can also like it, and then it goes up and you can vote it up in the window. Yeah, but maybe to start, yeah, of course, also very positive feedback in the chat window. I think it's very nice to see all of these specific examples, and yeah, also the human stories behind all of this. So maybe just to start with one question about one of the basic terms. I think you, Antonio, explained it a little bit later on, but maybe you can again shortly explain the concept of cooperatives, and maybe also say if there are also any other kinds of differences to other kinds of communities too that can do something similar.
Yes, I can respond to that, because of course every country in the EU has their own laws. For a renewable energy community in Germany right now, most of them are cooperatives. That means it's a type of organization where people come together and they invest different amounts of money, or could be the same, but it can also be different amounts of money. But in the end, each one of them has just one vote if you get to make decisions together. So it doesn't matter if you're a millionaire and you invest everything, or you're a person with a regular income and you invest a small amount. In the end, decisions are being made together. So this is a very democratic way of business, basically. And it also has its limitations. And a lot of these energy cooperatives would like also different business models. Some of them do have, like for example, some are a GmbH or other types, but it all has its benefits and its limitations. And if you want to keep it in a democratic way that is not too difficult for individuals to enter into, then it often becomes a cooperative in Germany. Now, having said that, the EU directive, Renewable Energy Directive, that's exactly what they are asking the member states to change, so that it's legally very easy to create a renewable energy community, for example, to share energy among neighbors. Like maybe you can imagine if you have a neighborhood, or everyone has a Reihenhaus or a small house, you know, and they all have a solar panel on their roof. They can use it themselves, but it's even more efficient in many ways to share it among each other in that district, in that small neighborhood. And right now, it's not easy in Germany to set that up, not at all. And this is exactly what the EU wants to change. And we will hopefully see that. I've just been looking in the background a little bit at the coalition agreement from the Ampelkoalition. And they have the sentence, I will read it in German, apologies for that. Wir stärken die Bürgerenergie als wichtiges Element für mehr Akzeptanz. And then they also point out energy sharing and other tools that are in that Renewable Energy Directive. So we're really hopeful that these will be put into German law in the next few years, and this will really drive forward the concept again.
Mm-hmm. Very good. So maybe as a follow-up to this, one of the most recent questions is also, as we were talking about Europe and the different countries and the differences there, one of the questions was if these kind of projects are viable in all the countries shown in the map at the beginning in Europe, or are there any more specific differences there?
Yeah, I can take that one. I mean, in relation to the map of across Europe, I think what it shows is that there are very large differences between the setup and the context for community energy. But there are lots of viable projects. I mean, the Netherlands and Belgium are doing quite well. Belgium is home to EcoPower, which is one of the biggest community energy projects in Europe. I would also say that, you know, in Eastern, there are differences between sort of North and South and East and West in Europe. in Eastern Europe, it's still a very new concept. So people are still kind of understanding what it is and how they can get involved. There really aren't very many projects there at all. It's also really starting to take off in places like Italy, driven by, they have one single body, which is like the main cooperative that supports other smaller groups. And that's been going for a couple of years now, and it's starting to get projects into the hundreds. So likewise in France, it's a fairly new concept because the energy system has been very centralized. But again, it has one main body, cooperative body for the community energy groups. And that's really helping to drive the movement. But I think until we see that legislation and that level playing field across Europe, we won't have the momentum that we need. Okay. So we expect a big push next year.
Okay, understand. Thanks for the insight. Some of the questions also concern the slides and also the map of the local communities. And so this is just organizational. So I think at the beginning, we already mentioned that if you want to have the content from the presentation or other things, you can actually write Gina and Antonio directly a mail, and they will provide it to you. So maybe you can show your email address again, or maybe you can write it also in the Q&A window. And this doesn't work, there's also our Slack group. So we will also post the questions that where we didn't have any time to answer them in the Slack group, and Gina and Antonio are also invited to join the Slack group and answer them there. And maybe also we will put your email addresses there for the content. So this is only for your information. And then, as we have only 3 minutes left, I think it's time for the last question. And I would just maybe ask you to sum up your message from today. If there was one thing that you would want the audience to remember, or just one advice how their companies could start right now, or what they should do next. If you could bring it down to 1 or 2 sentences.
Sure. Well, I think what I'd love people to take away, the time is running out. We've seen from COP26, we need radical change. Community energy, because it works environmentally and socially, it's a critical climate solution that can help accelerate that radical change that we need. And I think as an individual and as a business, you can do, as Antonio showed on the last slide, a number of things, ranging from as simple as switching your energy through to investing or to offering up roof space. So, really try and do what you can. And I think together, if we make these small efforts to bigger efforts, we can have the collective action that we need.
Very good. And that's a very good last statement. Gina and Antonio, thank you very much for taking the time and sharing your insights and experiences. And for the rest of you, if you want to join us again, in 2 weeks, we will have our last choice event of the year on the 16th of December. It will be actually this time a panel discussion moderated by our partner Baum e.V. And we will talk with sustainability experts from Miele, Henkel, and Telefonica, and look back at the major trends and strategies of this year on how to put climate targets into action. So with that, thank you very much, and enjoy your afternoon.